downstairs, there was a white guy with a gun in his hand pointing at me from down the flat.
All right, guys, welcome back on our channel Talk About. Today we have a special guest, Mala. We will talk about different things. Just to let you know, he's the coordinator of the BIS, of the Basketball Art School from Namibia. And to also inform you, Robin is today not here because he's busy with his A-level. So I hope he's studying right now and not playing Warzone or any other kind of games. So very busy with school. So Mala, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'm good. Thank you, Lucas, for having me. And let me also tell Robin all the best for the A-levels. But most of all, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Of course, I thought it's just a good idea to have you here because, in my opinion, you're a very special person because you've been through a lot. You have a lot of responsibilities, and I just like the way you see different things. So I think it's very interesting to do a little interview with you. So first of all, for everybody else out there in the world, who are you actually? I mean, I know you, but they don't know you.
True that. Well, okay, I'm just getting away some of the nervous jitters, but let me get into it. I mean, we had an opportunity to get to know each other for over a year, so it's a bit different. But I always say, whenever I have to explain who I am, it's always hard to explain it within a little bit of sentences because I think it takes time to get to know someone. But I'm Malakia Matias. I'm the coordinator at the Basketball Art School, which is an after-school program in Namibia. And I'm Namibian, first of all, and was born, bred, raised in Namibia. And so that's a bit of my background of who I am. And my responsibilities at BAS is basically just to look at the day-to-day activities at BAS and working with the kids who are from vulnerable background, and they're part of the Basketball Art School. So what they do is they come from school. They have an after-school program which involves tutoring, education, and basketball training. So those are basically my duties. Okay, but who I am, well, as we go through this interview, definitely I'll be able to explain more of who I am and what I do and what inspires me. So it's very hard just to answer who I am, really.
Yeah, I can understand that, definitely. So you mentioned that you're working at the Basketball Art School and you work
Yes.
with different kind of children there in different age groups. Why did you decide to work in that area specifically? Because, I mean, you could also choose, of course, another job. So it was your choice to do that.
Well, actually, you know what? I don't think I chose. I think the job, I wouldn't really say the job, but I would say the calling chose me rather, because background, I'm a IT technician. So I did what you call it, information technology in my varsity. So that's what I'm actually professionally. That's what I'm trained in. And I do have a passion for IT. I like how it works. I like the changes in the world that you can impact and all of that. So basically, while I was actually finishing up my IT degree some years back, I was working for Special Olympics Namibia, and I was actually doing something that has to do with IT in their office, which is more like an admin. And what people don't know is Special Olympics and Basketball Art School were very close. They had always had a partnership even before I came there. But then the people behind Basketball Art School were people that I kind of knew, like Rama Mumba, who's the director. I knew him from high school because we used to play against each other. And Frank, I got to know him through the basketball clinics and the coaching clinics that he was doing around Namibia at one in time. So it wasn't people that I just got to meet during that time. So once my tenure at the Special Olympics ended, I mean, okay, it didn't come to an end, but once I was still in, Frank and Rama approached me and they said, you know what, don't you want to come and work part-time at the basketball artist school? Because I was still working in the morning at the Special Olympics, and say in the afternoon you can come to the basketball artist school. Because I kind of already had a relationship with them. I mean, we were still playing basketball in the afternoon together and all of that. And it was a family. So I jumped at that opportunity and I said, hey, you know what? Why not? You know, but it wasn't with Frank. I learned that when you do something, it's either you do it committedly or you don't do it at all. So I kind of already knew in the back of my mind what I'm putting myself in, because I think, I'm not so sure, but I would say they used to play basketball in the afternoons and they would always invite me to come and play. But I realized that Frank always wanted a certain level of commitment. It was just leisure basketball. It wasn't something really like to say that it was like I needed to make some commitment, but I just wanted some commitment, even though it was just fun basketball, social basketball. And through that, I kind of realized that he wanted the same commitment for BS as much as it was for basketball. So that's basically where it started. And yes, years down the line, I'm at basketball artist school as the coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just for the people who don't know, Frank is the founder of the basketball artist school. So he founded the organization in 2010, right? Yeah, 2010. So he's also from Germany. So if you see that, Frank, kind regards also to you. And just to add on,
you know what I think?
Sorry,
you know what I think? Maybe you should have him on your podcast sometime soon.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I also thought about that, especially.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming to the next question, where I think I almost know the answer to, because I mean we played together for the Vikings for one full season. Well, not the playoffs, but so basketball is a big part of your life. I think I'm not wrong with that. But can you describe how you get children from the streets to the basketball courts, and how basketball impacts so many different children with all different backgrounds to bring together as a family? So the BAS family?
Well, let me first start with basketball. You're 100% right. Basketball is a huge part of my life. I started playing basketball, I think, back in when I was in high school, grade 8. But before that, when I was in primary school, I was already watching basketball. I was watching, I think, the Chicago Bulls. I think it was early '98 and all of that. And I just didn't have an opportunity to play because in my primary school, we didn't have any basketball. But I knew what I wanted. I always wanted to play basketball because I was so in love with the game. So when I got to high school, that was one of the best basketball schools in Namibia at that point in time, in Windhoek actually. And they have won multiple championships, the school. It has a huge basketball culture. And the school was Concordia College. That time it was called Concordia College. So that very first year when I got in grade 8, everybody's excited to beat. You are like, what you call it? You are, you say a freshman. Some will say a freshman. Some will say, in Namibia, they call it, you are a greenie. They call it a greenie in Namibia. So in my greenie year, I was like so excited because I'm in high school, and they always say you have to do sports. So the first 3 months is sports, from athletics, and then from there they start dividing different kind of sports. So I went to try with the soccer team, but it's not what I really wanted. And I found the basketball team practicing, and they didn't have a basketball age group for my age that time. And I was a bit small and scrawny kid, very geeky, just excited to be in high school and all of that. And the basketball team comprised of much older guys, physically bigger and everything. And I just wanted to play basketball. So it didn't stop me. So I just started practicing and playing. And mind you, I never really played from high school. I just started there. So already that time in my mind, I just wanted to be a basketball player. And I wanted to be actually a professional player one day. That was my dream, actually. So that has already germinated a fruit of what I wanted to be in life, was to be a basketball player. Or at least I wanted to do something that has to do with basketball. So now coming to some years down the line, I think everything that kept me in where I wanted to be was because of basketball. So whatever I wanted to do, if it's to pass, my parents would say, hey, if you don't pass, you don't get to play. So automatically I had to push so I can pass, So everything was always lying in that line, in terms of like physically, coming into peer pressure, smoking, drinking. I couldn't, because I was like, hey, I want to be a professional player. I wanted to look after my body. So already that time in a young age, I already started trying to learn from older players, trying to learn from other players, and also how to really start keeping my body in shape so I can be a good basketball player one day, So I think that kept me really much grounded, because I didn't stray into these other challenges and these other peer pressure things, because when people are out partying, I'm on the court shooting. You understand? And it was so competitive to a point where I would challenge anybody, and we'll be challenging from shooting competition to one-on-ones. It was always so much. And I remember there was one day I was walking from the court, because I would walk from school to the court, and I would always walk on the Western Bypass, but it was like a direct route. And it would take me about 30 minutes walk, and I'm at the school, and in 30 minutes I'm back at home. So one Friday, I remember, never forget, I was on the court shooting up to it was summertime, so it gets dark a bit late. So I think it was winter time, so it gets dark earlier. So I think I was shooting up around 5, 6, 7, and it was already dark. So on my way home, I came across some of my school mates, but they're not really in my class though. And they were drinking and smoking, and they had like a whole big wine and everything. And I was just like, yo, guys, I'm on my way home, because I came from the game and I was tired, And as I was walking home, so I said goodbye to them. So as I was walking home, I started thinking about that, like, that could have been me having fun, but I chose to practice, And they also made fun of me. They're like, because I was in my basketball, and they're like, Kelly, you're just a clown. How can you be, we're out here having fun. It's a Friday, you're practicing Monday to Friday, So as I was walking home, I started thinking about it, and I realized that was the best choice I'm doing, because I love basketball so much. And this is the one thing that I never made exceptions to anybody or people into what they said about me. Every other thing, I wasn't really so tough-skinned, but when it came to basketball, I was so adamant that I was going to be really good, and I didn't care about what people's opinions were. So I really wore a hard skin when it came to basketball and what people thought about me, because, Namibia is not a basketball country. It's literally dominated by soccer and other sport codes. And to tell people that you want to be a basketball player, you're crazy, You're crazy, you're insane, So, but I like that part of being different. So that I embraced that part of being different. So what happened was, so that taught me early in life where I wanted to be, And as years came down the line, I kind of understood how that impact can impact other kids that I was exposed to now when I came working for BAS, because I understood what basketball meant to me. And if there was a child that had basketball also in there, that had the same passion for basketball, I wanted to help them also achieve those dreams, So that's what made it so easy for me. And then I got to be in a position where, obviously, I didn't reach to be a professional player, but I got to be in a position where where I can actually influence basketball in Namibia. I can influence kids to have an opportunity. So that in itself also drove me even more, because I want to also to help others so they can also have that opportunity that I never got to, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, if I've answered your question there. So with that drive, it allowed me to work with kids that are from disadvantaged backgrounds, or kids that just want to be something in life. And I just try to inspire them and say, you know what, if you follow this route, you follow that path to what you want, you can definitely get there, you know. One of my favorite saying was always, I know it's not the best saying, but there was a saying that said, reach for the stars. I mean, aim for the moon, so that if you don't reach it, you fall amongst the stars.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it says. And the older I got to understand it. It actually means that you can be a star in your own right. You understand? So when you aim so high and you go up there and you don't really land on the moon or wherever it is, and you can be a star on your own right, you know? And I think that's the purpose of it at the end of the day, is to be a star in your own right, is to be a star in your own world. That's basically what it means, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's basically a background on it.
Yeah. So it's also interesting for the people, I will come quickly to that point, for the people who are watching the video who actually don't know how BAS and everything is going in Namibia. For just basic information, Namibia is 2 times bigger than Germany, but they have less people. So they have 2.5, 2.6 million people in this full country.
Yeah,
and yeah, one of the biggest part of the capital city is Katutura, the township there, where the basketball artist school is in. So before I started the year, I heard a lot of people telling me, are you sure you want to do that, going to a township where all these poor people live, and certain things like that. So very basically, just like I could never understand them, why they could just say that, because I mean, they never met someone from a township or however. And I think it's just a general thing, especially Germans do that. They just look at something and immediately they have an opinion on it, but they don't go deeper to it. So even I actually wanted to make a cut right now, but I think it's also good right now. I want to have a reaction on your side. I mean, you remember when I came back to Germany after a year in Namibia, I was pretty fat. I think I gained a lot of kilos. So do you know what somebody said to me? It's actually very hard, and I just want to catch up your reaction. And to add on after that, I also would like to know if there's still racism in Namibia from Germans to Namibians. But first, let me tell you what somebody told me. Lucas, why are you actually so fat? I thought down there is nothing to eat. I think that's
wow.
That's hard, right?
Yeah, that is really, you know what? Let me just get to something quickly before I come to that statement. Was I grew up in Komaldal actually, and Komaldal is like is in between town and Katutura, so it's kind of like in between. So back in the apartheid era, Komaldal was considered to be like a almost white. So my parents, they moved in there like back in 1990, and I think it was the end of 1990, and I think end of 1991, I think, and that's when Namibia got independence the same year, and that is when we started moving there. We moved in there, so I got to experience a lot of racism, especially when I was in school. And my primary school was very close to my house. It was like a 15-minute walk. And a lot of kids there, because I remember my sister was probably one of the first black kids to be at that school. And I remember one time, because she started a year before me, one day she came home and she had her hands burned because apparently she was sitting in front of the heater, and one of the kids in the school in the classroom pushed her into the heater, so her hand was burned because of that, you know. And she was always having like trouble and whatnot because of the fact that she was black, you know. So in my mind, before I went to school, my mom was already like burying me, like, yo, so you gotta be tough because the kids at school are really tough and they're mean, and so forth. So I already had to adapt that culture, you know, because I also saw my sister coming home, she would be crying, she has all kinds of stories and all of that. So that also kind of like changed my mindset a lot. So when I went to school, I had to be tough. So I think I remember when I went there, I wasn't the only black child. There were some black kids around me, but it was kind of difficult because I had to learn the language first, which is Afrikaans, and then English. And Afrikaans was like the first language at that school because it's in a community of Afrikaans-speaking people. So there was already that notion that, oh, you guys are black, you know, you are Kafir, because in Africa they call them, in Namibia they call them Kafirs, you know, being of black color. So I had to really go a lot through that, and I had to be tough. Like, I remember a lot of times I had to fight after school, and I had to come across a lot of things, but in the end of the day, it's something that really made me tough in a way that I understood it. But it also changed my mindset because, mind you, I grew up in between Katutura and town, the communities that are close to town. So being in this place, everybody only spoke bad things about Katutura. So in my mind, that's also what I thought, because I wasn't exposed much to Katutura because I was just enclosed at home. You know, so it's just home, school, home, nothing much. That's basically where my life was. So I kind of like, there was a disconnect between me and a lot of communities. So I wasn't really fitting in the colored community because, I mean, now, just to explain, colored in Namibia does not mean black. In America, when you say colored, you're kind of referring to a person of black skin color. But in colored in Namibia means between, it's more like a person who's like almost close to white, but it's a mixed with an Afrikaner. So that's a bit different. So it was more of that aspect that you're not entirely, let me just say, I was a little bit in a cultural confusion because I wasn't really white, colored, and I wasn't really black to embrace my mom's culture. Because growing up, I was mixed. My mom being a Namibian, Vambo speaking, and my father being Angolan. So even the way, so growing up in that, I kind of not really spoke much of my mom's language at school because we'll speak Afrikaans or English, and my Afrikaans was really bad. So at home, we'll speak Oshiwambo with my mom, which is Kwanyama, and with my dad, we'll sometimes speak English or Kwanyama in between. And also, I think there was also that perception that, oh, we got to teach you guys how to speak English, so let's learn how to speak English. So that was also another issue with my dad that we had. So now, when I came into high school, there was a big issue because now when I came to Concordia, it was the right mix because it had a lot of black kids who were from the north, and it had a hostel. And it had a lot of black kids who were from Angola, who were schooling in Namibia at that point in time. So I kind of had both my cultures brought together to one school. My mom being Kwanyama speaking, Oshiwambo, so I'm kind of there. And then my dad being Angolan, I kind of had that too because there were a lot of Angolan speaking kids at school. You understand? So it came together for me kind of well, but I was never accepted on both sides because I don't speak Oshiwambo that fluently. So the Oshiwambo speaking kids will be like, no, you're not Oshiwambo enough, or you are trying to be something that you're not. You understand? Because I can't just say, oh no, I'm leaning to my Wambo roots because I also have Angolian roots.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Angolian friends will look at my surname and they'll be like, oh, Malakia Matias. And they're like, yo, come here, you know? And I'm playing basketball. And a lot of the basketball playing kids were from Angola also. So now they were like, you want to be basketball player? This is not what Wambos do. So you're not really one of us. So there was always that huge disparity between where I am and everyone thought I had a crisis identity because I couldn't really lean to one side. So I really it was hard really in the beginning because also for me, it was also not so comfortable speaking Oshiwambo in front of people because for them, it's like, it's funny. It sounded funny because it had a dialect which was not similar to them. So, and then at the same time, I couldn't speak Portuguese and I never really wanted to speak Portuguese, but my Angolan friends never bothered, you know. But they were always like, yo, you got to learn, man, because your father is Angolan, you got to learn how to speak Portuguese. And my father was like, yo, I don't want my kids to learn Portuguese because Portuguese is not the language of my mother. It's rather a language of a colonial who was a Portuguese. So that's what I also told my friends, like, yo, guys, you got to learn the different ethnic groups in Angola before you start talking about, because it's like you telling me I must learn how to speak English. So there was always that, but I never really set in. So now coming to Katutura, there was always that mindset that you can't come to Katutura because it was dirty, the crime rate was high, all of this, poverty, things like that. So it was always considered as a downgrade. So even schooling at a school, which was in Hockland Park, it was kind of difficult because now when you come to Katutura, you're like, no, it's not the kind of school, you get what I mean? But then now, years come down the line and I'm working in Katutura actually. You understand? So that changed my mindset a lot different because I came from this place where everybody used to speak so bad about it. And then I find myself, I'm working here and I'm loving it. So that's where the difference came in. So everything that I experienced was more like a journey and it kept transitioning so much to from what people told me to what I actually experienced myself. Yes, and I did have family in Katutura and I used to go visit them, you know, but my parents were so protected. They were just like, okay, you're going to aunt's place there and you're coming back up. So there's not much there. You had like a lot of friends in Katutura and whatnot. So it was like in and out, not too many things that could affect you or you're exposed to so many different things. But the older you get, you kind of just realize that people are only placing their fears onto you, but it's not really you're not really experiencing what you need to experience, because some of these experiences you need them for growth. And that's what I think that was the biggest things I had to learn growing up, and especially coming in stages from primary school to secondary school to university and then working in Katutura. Those are the things I had to learn. And then that's now where you came in and say, you know what, racism has always been there, you know, but I have experienced racism a lot more from not the white people per se as much, but I've experienced it more from the colored people in my community, because I had to fight a lot, because it was always like, oh, the black kid, you know, and I had to defend myself in many, many cases, you know. And that's where I experienced a lot of racism. And then when I got to high school, I experienced a lot of tribalism rather than not racism. I experienced a lot of tribalism because we're all of the same color, but we disliked each other because of certain things. And I learned very early that since I'm not a full Oshiwambo speaking, and I'm not a full Angolan speaking, or I'm not a full Namib, I try to embrace it and I try to bring it together because I felt like that made me unique, and I always liked being different. So I never really cared about whether I hanged out with the Hero kids or the Mambo kids, whatever. It never bothered me because I wanted to experience everything, because I felt to myself, hey, I'm a mixed, so why not, you know? So every time people come to me and say, hey, what tribe are you? And I'm like, I'm Namibian. and they felt offended because they were like, hey, you can't just be Namibian, you have to be something. You understand? You're either this or you're that, you know. But I love that fact that I was Namibian, you know. And my Angolan people, they were so fully embracing because they never had this tribal thing to say, oh, you are Kimbundu, or you are Chokwe, or you are Kikongo. You know, these are the different tribes. It's just some few tribes in Angola. They were like, oh, we are all Angolians and we all speak Portuguese. So it unified them. You understand? It unified them to the point where, like, you know, and I liked that about it. So they never really said, oh, you are this or you are that. So I leaned more to that because they didn't really bother who you were, as long as we are all Angolians and that's it. We have fun. You get it. And that's what I liked about it. I really liked that aspect that I don't have to be a certain tribe. Let me just be Namibian and enjoy being Namibian, you know? And that's what I liked about it, you know? And since then, for me, that was the biggest, I think that was the biggest lesson I had to learn in life early. And I think it's also the one that made the biggest difference for me. And coming to Katutura, working in Katutura also changed my life, my mindset a lot more, because I realized that these barriers that we put in our minds, because it was based off an apartheid era where you had different, you had like in Katutura itself, you have the Bamboo location, you have the Herero location, you have the Damara location and whatnot. And then when I started working here at Special Olympics, I remember people saying, oh, the Damaras are like this. Oh, this is like this, you know. It really changed me a lot because I never looked at it from as a tribal view. I just looked at it like we're all Namibians and we're all trying to get somewhere, you understand? And that really made me unify, or that made my life so much easier because and I don't want tribe to be the restriction because it limits how you think in general and how you perceive things. And that also comes towards also to racism, you know. I mean, racism is one of the most underlying discriminations nationally. But I think the reason why I wasn't so much, where I didn't see so much of it is because I didn't really get to go to so many different places, you know, that had people that were racist. But I've seen it and I've also witnessed it like in firsthand. But the thing about what I really not tried to mind myself about racism is, since I grew up being called black so much or being Kafir so much, and I had to fight my way through so many things, I grew a tough skin around it. So that even when a white person starts being racial towards me, I might not notice it because I grew up in this environment which was already so tough, and I started worrying more about tribal than race. You understand? So that was a big difference. And with that difference, I took that. It really taught me a lot. So I took that in my life. So for me, racism it's there, but it doesn't affect me as much as tribalism affects me. Because I feel like tribalism for me is more, it rubs off me more wrong than a racist person. You understand? I had another experience when we used to go to church afternoon, and this church was in town. It was in Church Street. Church Street is the street close to DHPS. We were there, you know. There was a church there. So we used to go there in the afternoons because in the morning there was an English session. And my mom, she preferred the afternoon session because it was in Ushuambo. And I remember I was going to church. And this one afternoon, the church was full and we were just outside fooling around as kids. Because we used to be very naughty, especially myself. I was a really mischievous kid. You won't believe it. So in the church, next to the church, there was an apartment. I don't forget this. There's an apartment. And this apartment had a lot of white people in it. And it was very early. I think it was like around about 98, 96. I think I was probably still grade 6 or grade 7. Or maybe in grade 5, I think. So the church had like a slope before you get into this apartment. But there was a fence that separated us. So I don't know. I was sitting outside, and by the fence, the kids were playing. And then I just saw them running quickly away. So I don't know what they were running for, but I wanted to see what it was. So as soon as I went over to see, downstairs, there was a white guy with a gun in his hand pointing at me from down the flat. And he was pointing up at me. I, I, I never had a gun pointed in my life that time. I froze. I froze, and I remember very well it was a revolver because I started looking into guns. It was a revolver, and I was shocked. I was in total shock. And only when it hit me that this guy is pointing a gun at me, that's when I decided to move away backwards, slowly. You understand? And that's one experience that never left my mind till today. And I can still see that man whenever I think about it. And he was a white person. So I always think about it. Why would you take a gun and point at kids at church? You understand? So I don't know, maybe it was the stones that were falling off this cliff by the apartments. I don't know, maybe that's what it was, or he just wanted to scare us because maybe he wanted to take a nice afternoon nap. I don't know, but for me, that was a really racial thing to do because I don't think if those were white kids, you scare them off the same way.
Yeah.
I really don't think that was the case, you know. So those are some of the experiences I had growing up with racism and stuff. And it really changes your mind towards it. And I, for one, I never really looked into, I don't look into racism because it doesn't affect me as much as tribalism affects me. I think I get more affected by the fact that we can't be unified as Black people or as a community as Namibians than worry about racism, which is a minority group, which is not really a minority in the sense that they are marginalized, but they have more power and things, but I just feel like they're a minority group. And for me, I don't feel that should be the case because I feel like as Namibians, we should be unified rather than to look into racism. That's my point on it. I don't know if I went a little bit off topic, but it's something that I was thinking of also.
Yeah, I think it's quite good that you mention a lot of different stories because it's still for me interesting, and I worked a year with you, and of course I noticed also a couple of different stories where there was racism also in it, but I think it's always something different to hear that from someone who lives in Namibia or who lives in a different country to explain that to others, because a lot of people they don't know that this is still part of so many lives to have that. And I think, as you mentioned, it was very good for you to been through a lot in the younger years, so you were prepared for the age for an age.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
of course it's very hard stories, very tough stories, and well, just to add on a little story of my side, when I went once with a couple of basketball players from the league to Katatura to Kapana. For the ones who don't know, it's the best food market in the world. But also, I was sitting there, was eating my stuff. We were enjoying the evening. It was a quite nice day, but then a tourist bus stopped there. So I think there twice a week a tour bus stops at Kapana with tourists. So the most tourists in Namibia are actually white. I think I can just say that in general. And
yes.
I was like, okay, it's a tour bus, nice. They get very nice food here. It's a very nice atmosphere. We're enjoying our life. And they just stepped out of the bus, but immediately after that, some security guys, they must be also from Namibia, were there immediately with guns, with shotguns, and were protecting the people. And I was like, what's going on here right now? Are they just coming here through to watch? And then some guys who worked at Kapana Markt wanted to of course sell them something. And immediately the security guards pumped up their guns and were saying, hey, go back, go back. And I was like, what is happening here? But then I just realized the tourists, what they were doing. I never came to that point, but that changed totally my mind. The moment I saw the tourists with their cameras, with their big fat cameras pointing on the people and make photos like they're in a zoo. And I was like, Jesus, for that they need security guards? And then they come home and say, look how poor the people are, how they live. Oh, there's a white one. Look what he's doing. He's so foolish. Afterwards, he will never come back home. And it was so crazy for me that they've been through Kapanama with security guards with guns and then make photos of human beings like they're animals. And we're so afraid, or I don't know how to say that, but they were, for me, they were afraid because I was sitting there with a couple of good guys, of couple of friends. Of course, yeah, I also have to admit, I didn't have a watch on, my phone was at home, I just had a bit of money in my sock. So that are little things where I prepare for myself that nobody comes at me. But
Yeah.
they were like the big cameras, the iPhones, because I think the hard point is what people also have to understand, that the camera, of course, I would also steal it because then I can give my family food for half a year. And they wonder why they come at them. And it was just a so crazy situation where so much is to say on and on even add on. And I still have that all the time on my mind, even when people ask me, hey, there was nothing to eat, why are you not that fast? It's still racism for me. And this is where I personally had a lot of trouble when I came back, because even when I wasn't anymore in Namibia, I still had this kind of feeling like, oh, they don't understand what that actually means to the people down there. And for me, to be honest, the most Namibian guys I know, they are much, much more rich than the German guys. Just of two things, because they enjoy their life. Even for the Germans or someone from the US or ever, it doesn't seem like enjoying life, but the kind of how they used to see the life, it's very different because they appreciate everything what they have. Maybe it's not that much for some people, but they truly appreciate, and they just be happy. They are nice. The little things I mentioned also a couple of videos before were like, they just coming to someone and ask, how are you, sir? So there was a respect level. Yeah, maybe it's kind of, yeah, I'm the only white person in that place. Maybe, I don't know. But it was in Germany, you would never come to that point that someone asks you truly how you are, or just try to talk to you. And that's something what I experience a lot in Namibia, that the people are so heartwarmed that you have, I feel like I have a special connection from just living there a year. Maybe it's also the way I try to live the year, to connect to people. But it's just so crazy, and that's one of the biggest reasons. Well, of course, the respect level I have to you as a person, and because I want to show the people how crazy that is actually, how they talk about people they don't know, especially from the side where I'm living. Doesn't matter if it's the comment, hey, why is so fat, there's nothing to eat down there, or whatever. And that makes me so angry. Really, I had the first time in my life the feeling to punch someone in the face. I was
You know,
so mad.
you know what, I don't blame them, because people who don't know what goes on in other countries, based off what they hear, that's what they normally react like, you know. And it's like people saying, like, there's always this notion that Africa is one big country, you know. People don't understand that Africa has so many different countries in that, and especially with Americans, they just think Africa is like one big country, you know. And what people don't understand is they think that in Africa people are just walking around with a spear and they're just running around to hunt and whatnot. But it's quite developed, I must say. It's really, really developed. Being a person that have traveled into so many different countries, from the Western culture, having seen how it is, and also coming back to Namibia, Africa per se. I don't think that the spacing or the differences is by a wide margin. Of course, there's more accessibility to certain things, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's also, I think it experiences change people. That's one thing I've learned. Experiences change people. And for someone who has not experienced something, the chance of them changing are very slim, because they haven't been in a situation. And the same thing also, when you probably came to Namibia, when we were picking you up at the airport for the first time, you were like, oh my gosh, what is this, you know? And you're so excited, and you didn't know what you're going to experience that whole year. You understand? And you see all that, what you've experienced that whole year have brought us to this moment right now, you know, where we're having this conversation and you're thinking so differently because that whole impact you have, you know? So I also don't say blame them so harshly, because sometimes what people just like is an experience. Because once you have an experience, because a lot of us are so what do I say? We are so dogmatized in our minds from what we're told or how we're raised and everything, you know. Because if I was still the same way I was probably raised by my parents, and not with my experience that I've been through, I probably would not be even here having a conversation with you, because I'll see things very differently from what I, you know. So my experiences have actually changed me to, you know, I must have went through all those racial slurs with school and everything, the tribalism, for me to see things differently, you know. And it's also one thing. So I understand for someone who has never been in Africa before, because Europe is quite, not every, but it's quite privileged compared to an African, to a developing country. And obviously the experience will be so much different from someone who hasn't been here and then someone like you know. So automatically, it's what also the media shows us, you know. It's also what the media shows us. And they'll be like, oh, Africans are going through this, that. So they'll assume that everything is in the same condition, you know. And I think this is why people were surprised when they saw it and said, hey, but I thought there's nothing for them to eat down there. How come you're so big, man? How come you got so, you know? And maybe there's also one thing that people need to understand is come and experience certain things that you know. And the best way of experiencing is being part of something. You understand? And that also leads to the tourism also, you know, because when a tourist comes and he's in a bars, you know, tour bars, he's taking pictures and whatnot, it's not the same experience as you're living in the community, you're moving up and down and so forth. You know, when was it? Last year, I had an opportunity to be in Berlin. I had a friend who was in Namibia. She's so well-traveled, Jo, she's so well-traveled. And she told me when I was there, she was like, yo, you know what? Because I was more like indoors. She's like, you know what? You need to go out, Mala. Like, you really need to go out and do something out there, you know. Just go out and just experience something, you know. And at first I was like, geez, I don't even know, you know. And I wasn't so outgoing, and so, you know, and I jumped on it. And the first place I went was a Jewish museum in Berlin, and I went by myself, you know. So it was the experience of I already using Google Maps, finding where it is, getting on the subway, getting off at the right places. Of course, you're making mistakes as you're going. You're not just running through it flawlessly. You do come up to an intersection that's wrong, and then you have to go back and be like, oh, okay, it's from here and then there. And until you find yourself at the museum, man, you're walking through this, everything, and that's the experience. And it changed my mindset. You get what I mean? So it's those things that people like. So I don't blame someone who hasn't been in a certain experience to have a certain mindset, because that really limits. And this is also why I say, like, for tourism, when they do come, instead of going with a tour bus and doing things in the touristic way, also try to be part of something. You'll find that the experience is a lot different than you being an observer. Because then when you are observing and you're out, then you're kind of like taking yourself out of the situation. I mean, you're kind of taking yourself out of the picture, and you'll always have a critical mindset of judgmental, where you're kind of judging what's going on, But when you're in it, you forget to judge, and you just fully embrace the situation as a participant. And when you come out of that, the way you speak about it is very different, because you're like, wow, I was kind of blown away by this and that, And I think that's what makes it so unique. And that's what I'm also saying, that one shouldn't really worry about the few racist people, because sometimes the difference from them in the situation could be an experience, And sometimes maybe some people cannot be reverted due to experience. I mean, with experience and whatever it is, but there's always a line that will always differentiate the two, And I think if I was in the mindset of like everybody's racist and white people are racist or this and that, we would not have made so many beautiful experiences that we had. You understand? The Vikings team, the experience with the volunteers that come to Namibia, the experience with the different people, the different cultures, because then if that was the mindset, we'll be still thinking that, oh, these people are racist, or these people are, of that mindset. And it's just how it is. So I really, really think that the only way one can combat racism is like, I know there's like, this is a very sensitive topic, and people who might listen to this might come and say, you know what, your views and opinion was so wrong, and they were so and so, and they were so and so, So I'm not saying this is the best way and this is the only way, but I just feel like the only way we can all is to be positive in every situation and to move forward. There are those situations where it needs to be brought to order, it needs to be brought to justice, and those justice must take its course. But there are some situations where you can't go and to court and make a case at that point in moment, or you can't, or the efforts, it's just a bit too lengthy, So sometimes it's the best thing to do is just to ignore things like that and just to enjoy the experiences that you're having in the moment, because those will rip away the joy from the experience that you're having, because I feel like if you react to a racist person or a racist situation, it takes so much energy from you just to get that fulfilling peace. You understand? Just to say, okay, I went to court, or I did this and I did this and I gave it to them. You understand? It's so much energy. But if you just focus on like things that these things don't matter and you have to move on in a certain way, you kind of like conserve your energy, and you are more happy, and you move forward with the things that you want to do. And that's just basically where it is. I know a lot of people will say, yeah, but Mala, that's not the way to go about it and whatnot. There will be different opinions and all of that. I, for one, I don't agree with racism. I'm not a fan of it. It really is disgusting. But I'm also one that I like to see progression all the time, and I like to see unity. And I never looked at color, especially when coming into contact with different people. I don't look into color. I always feel that if you want to get somewhere, we need to work together. And I think that's the most important thing. So if you have the energy that, hey, let's work together towards something, I'm definitely going to support that towards that energy, But if your energy is, hey, you're black and you're this and you're that, and automatically I will distance myself from such a situation and want to move forward, you know? So I think you should always be in that mindset that, you know what, this experiences of racism and whatnot should not hold you down. And I think you should fully embrace the fact that you were in a very different culture, in a very different environment, and your experience is one that you'll embrace for the rest of your life, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that you shouldn't really be worried about. And it's just subtle. Everybody has their own mindset, and we can never change that, you know? But we can change how we react to things that are said to us or to situations that are brought to us, you know? And I feel like as a global community, we have done a lot to combat racism. I do feel there's progress in it. Of course, there are still more things that can be done for us to one day say we're living in a fully well-balanced, non-racial community. There's still many things we can do to get to that point, but it's everywhere. And it's in so many forms. It's in so many forms, you know. And it's one thing that when we only have a small span of time on Earth. And if we focus on all the bad stuff in that, then you never get to enjoy life. You understand? So I think that's one of the best things, you know. So with that being said, that comment or that person saying what you had isn't there no food there? I think you could laugh back and say you had the best experience because you were having the best food. Kapana was so great, wasn't it?
That was, you know, very nice. Yeah.
So it's true. That's true. Yeah, so for me, I would have said, you know what, it was so good because the food was so good, you know, so that was a good experience, and you did enjoy the food too. So I don't think it's something that you should hold a mindset back.
Yeah, I think the mindset is there also one of the biggest part. Also, if you come, just from my perspective, if you come to a different country, where you have to find yourself more or less in the working area where you're working. So for myself, it was definitely at BS. Of course, I also needed a bit of time to be there, to be accepted and especially respected. I think that's much more more important to be respected, especially for myself. It was a big challenge because first of my language. I think you remember also when I came to Namibia, my English was quite bad. I think that's also put in a nice way right now. But for the interview, to get that volunteership, I was preparing so hard to get this job. I mean, doesn't matter what you would have asked, I would be ready because I had a big paper with every possible question on it where I had an answer to it. But I think the mindset is there so important. Just for example, for me, I felt like it was quite hard for me to come to the Vikings team. So just to explain, the Vikings are the men's basketball team there. And I thought the Vikings. It was a bit hard to be just there, to be very committed on one side, but on the other side, to be also for some of them kind of coach, teacher sometimes. So what I tried was just to show them how committed I am. Just might be very small, but I was growing my beard. I didn't went to barbershop with my hair, so I didn't cut my hair for a year. So I just wanted
Was I the influence?
Sorry?
Was I the influence for that? To grow the beard and the hair?
No. Back in the days, you didn't have that long hair. I just wanted to show them that I also want to be a Viking with not my actions on and off the court, but also from my personal type. So that was kind of my mindset to show, hey guys, I want to be part. I try my best as I can. And I think the best reward I got was the one game we played against the Wolves 2 on the court outside at Independence. No, what is it called? The court there?
In Plaza.
In Plaza, right. So when we played there, UN Plaza, right? Yeah.
UN Plaza.
Yeah, UN Plaza. So when we played there, I think actually the Wolves were the team to beat to win a championship, and our mindset as a Vikings was, of course, to also win. And I think we were behind 6 or 8 points and 2 minutes left, and I made a couple of shots in the end. Well, I wouldn't be able to make the shots if I didn't get a good pass from you or our other guards or players. So it was still the team effort, but in the end, I was the one who was scoring the points. So we won the game. And after that, I was totally done. Yeah, I think everybody could see that because I was just falling on the ground and I was done. But the way how we connected after that, it was so special to me because I thought that everybody is together and we are so connected, not in just a way, yeah, we have to work a year together. We were truly connected for me during that part. And even after the prayers, I mentioned that also before in the other video, the prayers before every and after every game were so important that I still can say I still miss them before my games here in Germany. It was such a special experience that maybe you can understand, but the most people here, when I'm talking to some friends of mine from the basketball club, they don't understand what I'm talking about. And that's so interesting because nobody can take this experience from me. And that's also the experience that you made in positive or even negative ways. Nobody can take it from you. And this is just how we can see life right now, and that we know where we stand, and that everybody can try to give his best to the life that he has, because as you mentioned before, we don't have that much time on earth. So that's a really crucial point, and that's really, really amazing to come in the mind to that point where you understand that. So that's just for me the biggest thing I learned actually in Namibia.
You know, that Vikings team was the best team I ever played for in my life. That was so gratifying for me because I always wanted to play for a team. So I remember the year before that I was coaching the Vikings, because I was coaching and in my mind I was like, I can't play with these boys, they're too young. That was my mindset, and I was like, you know what? So I was playing for a Unam club. I was playing for Unam Rebels, which was, I would say, okay, they're bigger, they were more skilled, and I was thinking on a professional level because the team was playing they were playing first division, and the Vikings, when I was coaching them, they were playing I was coaching, they were playing first division, and we were playing in the men's top league, flight league, you know. So when Frank came and said, you know what, I have an offer for you guys, and the offer is you have to play for the team. That was his condition with me. That's what he told me, that if you guys want me, if I'm going to coach. But we had conversations before that, me and him, and Rama always told me when we used to play. Remember the games I told you when I used to come from Special Olympics to play those social games? We had a team with Rama called the Eagles, and this team was not so well because as much as Rama was committed to this team and I was committed, there were certain players on the team that were not committed. And Rama told me, and that was way before, and that time most of the Vikings players were still in primary school and high school, but they were like early grade 8, whatever it was. And Rama said, you know what? My dream one day is to play with these boys. And the next time I play on another team, it will be with them. I didn't think it was going to happen because in my mind I'm just like, you know what, these boys are too young and they wouldn't come. By the time we start playing, I'll be on another level and I don't want to play with these boys, you know, things like that, you know. But I just didn't see it. The bottom line is I didn't see the vision because Rama is a visionary. He sees things really far ahead. That's something I noticed about him. So when Frank said that to me and said, hey, don't you want to be? And already it was family. It was easy for me to make that transition. I was like, okay, I do want to play. And I knew it was going to be hard for us because I was like, they're much smaller and physically, but they could play. They could really play. And I was just thinking to myself, these guys are much smaller and it's going to be tough. And there's always this whole notion that the BAS kids think they know how to play basketball, so everybody wanted something from us, So when I made my commitment to play for Vikings, I made it with my all. And what I loved about that decision was when Frank made his proposal for the team, he gave his all.
Yeah.
And I never played for any team that had that commitment to it. That's what made it so different. So everybody on the team, when they made their commitment, was they're giving it their all. And I tell you this, I'd rather play for a team where everybody's giving their all and are working towards a purpose and a goal than where someone is another one is kind of giving something, And back to that game at UN Plaza against Wolves. That was one of my best games because that is the game that unified the Vikings into believing that we can do it. I still get so excited when I think about that game. I still have pictures of it anyway.
Yeah.
Because someone was taking pictures that day. And I remember it was so tight because, first of all, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was so hot, first of all. It was really hot. And we're not so used to playing in an outdoor court like that because it was so hot. And when we got there, we wanted to give our best, but we were so tired because of the condition and everything. And Wolves was a champion, and they were like, yeah, these are high school kids, because I think it was only me and Rama with the most experience. And I think that time we were like 30, 31, I think, or so, or 32, I'm not so sure. And you were the one of the most experienced because you played in a kind of a semi-pro team.
Yeah.
So everybody else were just beginners. I mean, the rest of the team were just young boys, and they were high school boys. And you remember that day we kind of lost humbleness because we were like screaming.
Yeah.
We're screaming high school kids, something like that in that line, and it was so funny because even I started screaming it, and I was not even in high school.
Yeah.
But it was the moment where the team was like, that energy like sucked me in. And I was also just screaming, high school kid, high school kid. I was in high school, it was such a moment where we kind of lost, we got together, and at the same time we kind of lost the humble part of it, but it brought the team together the most, and we really fought that last minute out, and we won it by defense.
Yeah.
It's defense that won it, because I still remember that last play, if I'm not mistaken. I think I stole it and I chucked it to you, and then you made the winning.
I was too slowly to run back indeed.
Exactly.
Come to that point.
But that was one of the best games we had that day. And after that, we always had the prayer before the game and after the game. And we came together, we did the prayer because it kept us humble, it kept us to the ground. And I always say it was one of my favorite games I had because it was early in the year, and it set the pace on how we're going to be this whole year. That year, that's what it did.
I think it
set a pace for us like this.
I think also that we showed as the Vikings, the league, that they should not underestimate us. I also can say from my part, these emotions we had after the game, where high school kids sucks, that were the viewers screaming all the time, and we were beating the champion. So I was, after the game, my emotions were so crazy. I even have to say, I feel better after this game against the Wolves after we won back in 2013 our German championship. It was, of course, it's totally different, and you may say it's just one game, and this is a championship after a full season. But this game changed so much in this team, in this kind of family, which is so crazy. I mean, there was a really big family growing back together.
You know what was so important about that game? Because even though I coached the Vikings that year, the year before, and it came to that game, I think that game gave us the most confidence we ever had. And the confidence was so important to these boys because we needed to believe. You understand? We needed to believe in something. And also, everything that Frank was teaching us came to reality with that. And that moment came to reality in that moment. The hard work, everything came in reality. And I think that was the game that made us kind of like, you know what, I think we can do this, you know? And I think that's what it was, man. And I think also what I liked about it was the preparations of the games. You know, we would meet like 2 hours before the game, sit down, talk about the game, go on the court, starts warming up, change, the prayer, do the Vikings war cry, warrior cry, and then we take off to the game, get there well in advance, stick together, prepare our minds.
Asses, man. Oh, Jesus, we kicked asses.
It was something else. It was something else. And I think that the closest I ever got to a professional feeling of a team.
Yeah. I even have to say that. Even if I played on some high level here in Germany from a team under 16, I played in the highest league here possible in Germany. But, well, we also had a very professional coach that time, both years when we won the championship and when we were kicked out from Berlin in the playoffs. Well, the second coach is also our coach next season, so I'm very excited. So, Jesus, I'm so looking forward for that season. But what I wanted to say is that the way everybody was thinking of the main target was so differently that I ever experienced before, and it's such a special thing that I can't even put to words. It's just crazy. So if I would have a wish left, I would say, bring me back to the Vikings when I left to finish off the season with the playoffs. Because I felt so bad that I had to leave for the playoffs because my year was ending and I had to start university. I felt so bad, but, well, it's so hard. I would love to come back and experience the season until the end with you.
You know, I think that year I learned so much about myself and about also the team. And I learned a lot about basketball too. But you know what I learned a lot was the aspect of team. I never really had that concept of team the way I got to learn it that year. And in a way, it also brought us more together, closer to each other. And it kind of like forged this relationship that we had. And I think that was the most one of the most memorable experiences I'll always have in my playing days of basketball. And I would just wish, like, of course, you can't turn back the hand of time and relive a moment in the past. But I just wish, like, moving into the future, I will still have an experience like that, you know, because it's one of my favorite experiences in life. Actually, it really is one of my favorite experiences in life, and through that, it has actually changed my mindset on how I see things, how I do things, and also just the aspect of, look, I'm growing older. I'm not young as I used to be, and I can't play the way I used to play. But I would want to take the same approach when I'm coaching, in the same approach, so that you know that you're not just having a basketball team, but you're building something with them that is of that magnitude. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from that moment.
Yeah, definitely. So to sum everything up, I think we talked already over an hour. Just one question left from my side. Is there? No, I do another question. I think that's way better. Do you have, from your perspective, any advice or motivation or whatever which you would like to give to people based on your experience that you make? Because maybe there are also a lot of different persons, of course, they've been through a couple of things. Doesn't matter where they are, where they're coming from, but is there anything from your side that you would try to give them?
Well, first of all, I still say, when I look at the questions you send me, the pre-questions, there are still a lot, I would say. And I don't know if we'll finish them all today, but we can always have another, you never know. We can always do another podcast similar to this, not a problem at all. But thanks for that question. It is advice I would give anybody, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I have to say, I've been through a lot of experiences, and they have actually changed me and made me in so many different ways. And one of them that I always thought it's a cliche to tell someone, yo, follow your dreams, do this, do that, you gotta be motivated, you gotta go after life, I always thought it was a cliche because that's what everybody say to everyone, stay in school, do this, do that, reach, chase your goals, you go after them or whatever it is, And like in my case, I don't know. Let me say, if I was maybe 2 meters tall, will I have made NBA? Would I have played somewhere else? Because if I look at commitment myself for a game, I was committed. If I look at the ability to learn, I could have done that. But it's always one of those things where I look at, now I look at, maybe you look at a child that wants to be a professional player one day, or wants to achieve a certain goal. And for some certain things, you need certain abilities. You understand? And there's no way an NBA team is looking into an African player who's not well over 2 meters and has some supernatural abilities that not your average person has. You understand what I mean? So is it good enough to tell somebody that follow your dreams, you'll make it? Is it really good enough? I always put that a question mark, because sometimes you just have to look at reality as it is, I had people tell me, yo, you'll never make it NBA, you'll never make it professional. Even my father used to tell me that, like, no, there's no way you're going to make it professional, And he was being honest, and as much as I wanted to say, hey, I couldn't fight, I could do so much, you get what I mean? But in my country, with the limited resources I had in my environment, I'm not blaming it, but I'm just saying, with my environment, there's only so much you can do before you can get to that level. You know what I mean? But from my experience is, I think I've been so true to it that I wanted it so badly. It opened so much doors that made me happy. You understand what I mean? It made me happy in the sense that I get to do what I love. And if it's not giving the game back to a child to learn how to be a basketball player, I feel accomplished. You understand? And maybe one day Namibia will have that professional player that will be in the NBA or ever professional. And I think that will also be my dream being met right there. You understand what I mean? Like, I could also be like, wow. I could also be like, wow, that's always what I wanted to be, And he's living it on our behalf, So I feel like as living beings, we are connected. Our energies are somewhere connected. That's how I feel. So to answer your question, how do I inspire somebody? How do I say, hey, do you want to you follow your dreams and be what you want to be? You know, I wouldn't say that, but you know what I would say from my experience, what I have learned is I would say, you know what, do what you love, because when you love something, it's the passion is always there. You know, the growth, the determination. You don't have to, and I'm not saying that you're being lazy because you don't want to dig deep, but it's things unfold so much easy for you because this is the energy you're sending out to the universe. This is the energy you're sending out. This is what you pray to God if you are that religious, and at the end of the day, that's what is manifesting for you because that's what you want. And at some point in time, I believe you will come to that crossroad where you want to be. That's what I believe. You get to that crossroad where you want to be, and that's because you are doing what you love. You understand? And I think that's the key point, is to do what you love. So in a nutshell, I'll always tell somebody, do what you love. Because I find that when you follow what you love, you'll be happy and you'll always be fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think I would still share the same happiness if I was a professional player. And then what I am at the moment, I'll still share the same happiness. You understand? Because I'll be like, you know what? I'm playing NBA. Obviously, in a professional player, it could be maybe there'll be certain environment changes. You understand? But within this, the environment also is different, but the happiness will always be there, you know. So for me, it's always follow what you love. Another rule that I always like is treat others the way you want to be treated. I think that's the most important. And I would also say respect for everyone, respect for nature, respect for even a common end. You know, I feel like it goes a long way, you know. So I would say for anybody, it's once you have, I think, those core principles in line, I feel you can reach where you want to be, and life won't be so hard because you don't have to dig deep, or you don't have to fight your way through things that are not making you happy for you to get your end goal. But when you do what you love, somehow life just has a way of fulfilling you. And it fulfills you in so many different ways because you're doing what you love. And that's what I always want to tell people is, hey, do what you love. You know, if making millions of dollars is what you love, then by all means do that. You know, if making new businesses is what you love, then by all means do that. You know, if doing what you love is pursuing a degree in astrophysicist maybe, and becoming someone who reads stars and the universe and space and all that, and that's what you love, you find that your path will automatically open itself for you. That's just how I see it, you know. So in that point, I would say my advice or motivation to anybody is, hey, do what you love, man. That's what I would say, you know. So don't settle for less. If it's not what you love, then, you know, and even settling will not be a situation because you are doing what you love. It's coming from the heart, and it's the most important thing. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's
perfect. Thanks a lot, Mala. I think it's very interesting what you said over the full podcast, over the full video. So thanks a lot again for your commitment also here for that podcast. Thank you for everything you did right here. So guys, I think we can end this podcast right now here. So don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share it, of course. And yeah, I think we see us next time. Definitely with Robin again back on my side. But again, Mala, thanks again for joining me to come up with all we did. And I think we definitely can do another podcast together to grow together also as a talk about community. And I think this video shows also what way we want to go with our channel on YouTube and on Spotify. So yeah, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and share the video. And if you have any questions to me or even to Mala, put it down in the comments. Mala is also a subscriber of our channel in a private way. So if he sees that, he will also respond to that. I think I can just say it because you would do it, right? So perfect. Otherwise, I wish you a good day, and the last word is from your side.
Well, Lucas, thank you so much for having me. When you called me up and said, "Hey, I want to do a podcast with you and this and that," I was very happy, because I would always like to share whatever it is with you guys, with you specifically, because we had such a close relationship, especially back here in Namibia. And also you shared a lot. I think we had a lot in common at one point, especially what you went through and coming into Namibia and all of that. I think there are some things me and you can relate to. Mm-hmm. So for me, doing this it's really, really, I really enjoyed it. And I didn't even see the hours go because we were so in sync in the conversations.
Yeah, true.
And that's also one of the reasons why I said I didn't want really to look at it. I wanted to come from the heart, so that it's much easier.
Yeah.
So please, that's a good job you're doing. And please, guys, subscribe, follow up. If you have any questions to me or to Lucas, I'll definitely do my best to reply to my best ability. And of course, me and Lucas can always do another one. I think also I doubt we've covered half of the things we said, did we?
Sorry?
So we'll definitely see. I'm saying I doubt we've covered half of the things we said we'll do.
No, but it's fine. I think we did it from the heart, and that's the most important thing. It was just, as I mentioned in the pre-call before that video, just a guideline.
All right. God's man.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you again. Vikings Ahu.